Now to the passing of U.S. Senator and presidential candidate Bob Dole. Elizabeth Dole, his wife, announced this morning that he had died in his sleep. Dole was 98 years old. The U.S. flag is flying at half-staff tonight at the U.S. Capitol in his honor. Governor Whitmer also ordered U.S. flags to remain lowered at all public buildings in Michigan. Dole was wounded in action during World War II. His political career began in the U.S. House in 1960. He was elected to the Senate in 1968. In 1976, he was President Ford's running mate, and in 1996, he ran and lost the presidency to incumbent Bill Clinton. Earlier today, I sat down with Richard Norton Smith to talk about the life of Bob Dole. Smith is a presidential historian, former director of the Ford Library, and was once a speechwriter for Dole. Let's talk about his impact on American politics.
The Americans with Disabilities Act might very well not have passed, but also the Martin Luther King birthday bill, which Dole shepherded through the United States Senate. There's a whole host, Social Security, but I think he will be remembered more for the personal story, which is extraordinary. It's remarkable that anyone lives to be 98. It is miraculous that this man lived to be 98. When you know that when he was 24, 25, the doctors didn't expect him to live 24 hours. So that losing the presidency, I think it hurt, but he put it in perspective compared to what he had overcome. Dealing with the defeat at the polls was pretty small potatoes.
Can you explain his relationship with Gerald Ford and that partnership in that bid for office?
Well, first of all, like you said, Bob Dole was of the generation, one of the last probably of the generation, who believed that there was something almost sacred about the presidency, that if a president asked you to do something, you did it. Gerald Ford, of course, and he had been in Congress together. Ford got there a dozen years earlier and in the House. Dole actually provided the votes that made Ford House Minority Leader. And so it wasn't that unusual to think a decade later that Ford would return the favor on an even larger scale by making Bob Dole his running mate in '76.
You mentioned his sense of humor. I think a lot of people will remember him for speaking in third person often. What was that about, and how did that speak to his personality?
It's a great question. I have no idea where it came from, and I never asked him. I never screwed up the courage to ask him, but I know he saw the joke in it. He was in on the joke, of course.
What do you want people to remember about him?
His decency. Other people will talk about and debate his skills as a campaigner, or whether, quite frankly, he pushed party loyalty to the limit. There are certainly people who believe that he defended Nixon more than he should have in '72. There are certainly people who believe that he defended Donald Trump more than he ought to have more recently. And that's all part of the historical discussion that will play out. But right now, I'm thinking of his decency and his generosity.
Richard Norton Smith had a lot of interesting things to say, and we couldn't fit it all in on TV, but you can watch the full interview on our website, 13onyourside.com.